The story of Mat Armstrong and his broken Ferrari project is not just about fixing a car. It is about struggle, patience, and the harsh reality behind big automotive builds that look perfect on YouTube. At first glance, everything seems exciting. There are trips to places like Miami, expensive builds like Bugatti projects, and even buy a new house. From the outside, it looks like successes everywhere. But inside the garage, things are completely different. The truth is much harder. The Ferrari project, which once looked like a dream rebuild, slowly turns into a nightmare. Every time progress seems close, something new goes wrong. It creates a feeling that the project is always one step away from success, but never actually reaching it. This constant cycle of hope and failure becomes the main theme of the entire build. Viewers watching the journey start to feel the tension. They want the car to work, but they also see how difficult it has become. This is what makes the story so powerful. It is not just about cars anymore. It is about the emotional journey behind the build. When Matt returns from his busy schedule, instead of resting, he goes straight back to the Ferrari. That shows how important this project is to him. Nothing else matters until the car starts. But the deeper he goes, the more problems appear. The car was not just repaired after a crash. It was rebuilt from scratch and upgraded with a full challenge kit. This means it is no longer a normal Ferrari. In fact, in Ferrari's eyes, it is not even their car anymore. That one detail changes everything and creates one of the biggest problems in the entire build. Because a car is no longer standard, getting help becomes almost impossible. When Matt reaches out to Ferrari, hoping they will support him, the response is not what he expected. Instead of helping, they step back. They do not want to be involved with a modified car. This moment is frustrating because Ferrari is the one company that understands a car better than anyone else. They have the tools, the knowledge, and the experience. But without their support, the project becomes much harder. For a moment, there is hope when Ferrari finally replies. It feels like things might improve, but that hope quickly disappears because the car still does not start. At this point, everything starts pointing toward one major issue: the hybrid battery. This is not a simple battery like in a normal car. It is the heart of the system. Without it working properly, nothing else matters. The entire car depends on it. But replacing it is not easy. The cost alone is shocking. Around $18,000 just to try a new battery. And even then, there is no guarantee it will fix the problem. This creates a difficult situation. Spending that much money without certainty is risky. Even worse, installing the battery is not the final step. It still needs to be coded, and only Ferrari can do that. So even after spending thousands, they still depend on the same company that already refused to help. This creates a feeling of being trapped. No matter what decision they make, there is always another problem waiting. While the battery issue becomes the main focus, other parts of the car also start causing trouble. One of the most overlooked but important systems is the cooling setup. Because the car has been modified with a challenge kit, everything at the front is different. The layout is no longer simple. Parts are moved, and nothing fits the way it should. Radiators are placed in unusual positions, and custom mounts are required. This is where Bob comes into the picture. His role becomes very important because he is responsible for making everything fit together. Unlike standard builds, this is not a plug-and-play situation. Every part needs custom work. He creates brackets, adjusts fittings, and carefully builds a system that can handle the demands of the car. When the main radiator is finally installed, it looks impressive. It is bigger, stronger, and clearly designed for performance. But there is still uncertainty. The race version of this car does not use a hybrid system, so no one knows if the setup will work properly in this unique combination. This creates another layer of doubt. Even when something looks perfect, there is always a question in the background. Will it actually work? When the radiator fits perfectly, it feels like a small victory. Moments like this are important because they keep the team motivated. Without these small wins, the project would feel impossible to continue. However, the next challenge quickly removes that sense of relief. The air conditioning system becomes a major problem. At first, it might not seem important, but it turns out to be one of the most difficult parts to fix. The pipes are rigid, meaning they cannot be easily adjusted. They do not line up with the new layout, and forcing them into position is not an option. This leads to cutting pipes, changing angles, and trying different solutions. But nothing works easily. It becomes clear that this is not a simple fix. The situation gets so complicated that welding is required, meaning Bob has to return and continue the custom work. This slows down progress even more. At the same time, other parts of the garage look completely different. Cars are getting polished, painted, and protected with PPF. Vehicles like the 812 Gallardo and GT3 RS look perfect and ready to go. This contrast is interesting because it shows two sides of the same environment. On one side, everything is smooth and successful. On the other side, the Ferrari project is stuck in a constant struggle. But viewers are not interested in the easy wins. They are focused on the Ferrari. The big question remains the same. Will it finally start? As the moment of truth arrives, everything is connected carefully. Every wire, every sensor, and every system is checked. This is the point where all the hard work should pay off. The battery is connected and expectations are high. But instead of success, the car immediately shows problems. The hazard lights start flashing nonstop, and the dashboard is full of warnings. This is not the result anyone wanted. They try plugging in the car to charge it, hoping it might respond, but nothing happens. There is no charge, no improvement, just the same issues again. This creates a feeling of frustration because they have already faced this situation before. It feels like they are stuck in a loop. No matter what they do, the result does not change. During this tense moment, there is a small break in seriousness when Dip suggests a method to turn off the hazards. It sounds like a cheat code, something simple and almost funny. They try it, only to realize it is a joke. While it adds humor, it also shows how desperate the situation has become. They are willing to try anything, even something that sounds unrealistic. This moment highlights the mental pressure they are under. After all these attempts, they make a big decision. They choose to replace the battery with a brand new one costing $18,000. This is not just a technical decision. It is a financial risk. But at this stage, they feel they have no other option. When they previously disconnected the battery system, the hazard light stopped, which made them believe the battery is the main problem. So they move forward with confidence. The new battery arrives, and it represents hope. It is fresh, expensive, and expected to solve everything. The old battery is removed, and all connections are carefully taken apart. During this process, they notice an oil leak. Surprisingly, this is one of the few simple problems in the entire build. It turns out to be a bad seal, which is quickly replaced. For once, something goes right without complications. This small success feels important because it breaks the pattern of constant failure. But the main focus remains on the battery. Once everything is installed, they prepare for another attempt to start the car. This moment feels critical because so much depends on it. When they connect the system again, things do not go as expected. The hazard lights return immediately, but this time the situation becomes even worse. A new warning appears: battery thermal runaway danger. This is not just a normal error. It is a serious issue that suggests the battery could overheat or fail dangerously. At this point, it feels like the car is actively resisting every attempt to fix it. They try adding coolant and making adjustments, hoping to calm the system. Finally, something changes. The ignition turns on for the first time. This is a major moment because it shows real progress. For a brief second, it feels like success is close. But that feeling does not last long. The car refuses to turn off, and the overheating warning remains. This creates another confusing situation. It is not a complete failure, but it is not a success either. It sits somewhere in between, making it even more frustrating. They connect diagnostic tools to understand the issue better, and the results point to battery temperature sensors. This adds another layer of complexity because the wiring looks fine. There are no obvious problems, yet the system still does not work correctly at this stage. The team starts thinking about coding. Modern cars rely heavily on software, and without proper coding, even perfectly installed parts will not function correctly. But once again, they face the same problem. Only Ferrari can perform the coding. The tools required are extremely expensive, costing between $20,000 and $30,000. Even with those tools, approval from Ferrari might still be needed. This creates the worst possible situation. They are stuck between two difficult choices. They can go to Ferrari and risk having the entire car taken apart, or they can try solving the problem themselves with expensive tools and no guarantee of success. The fear of Ferrari replacing entire systems instead of fixing small issues adds to the stress. One small problem could lead to a complete rebuild of the wiring, which means starting over again. At this point, the project feels less like a rebuild and more like a battle. Even the team admits how difficult it has become. Sleepless nights, constant testing, and no clear answers create a heavy atmosphere. Despite all the challenges, there is still some progress. The hazard lights sometimes stop, and the ignition works, but the most important goal remains unfinished. The car still does not start. This is the most painful part of the entire journey. After spending $18,000 on a new battery and putting in countless hours of work, there is still no solution. But this is also what makes the story unique. It is real. There is no fake success or forced ending. Everything is shown honestly, including the failures. This honesty is what connects with viewers. They see the struggle, and they feel invested in the outcome. Out of all the builds, this one becomes the most challenging. Even more than expensive projects like Bugatti builds, this Ferrari pushes them the hardest. It tests their patience, skills, and determination. The story is no longer just about fixing a car. It becomes about finishing something that refuses to be completed, in the end. The Ferrari project remains unfinished, but the journey itself becomes a real story. It shows that not everything goes according to plan, even for experienced builders. Sometimes, the biggest challenges come from the smallest details. The project continues, and the hope remains that one day the car will finally start. When that moment comes, it will not just be about hearing an engine run. It will be about overcoming every obstacle along the way. That is what makes this build special. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. And right now, the story is still waiting for its final chapter as the struggle continues. The emotional pressure inside the garage becomes just as intense as the technical problems. What started as an exciting rebuild has now turned into something much heavier. Every new day brings a mix of hope and doubt. On one hand, there is always a belief that the solution might be just one step away. On the other hand, every failed attempt makes that belief weaker. This mental battle is something most viewers do not see in normal car builds. Usually, videos show progress, clean results, and satisfying endings. But this project is different. It shows the real side of building a heavily modified car, especially one from a brand like Ferrari, where everything is complex and tightly controlled. The deeper they go into the system, the more they realize how locked everything is. It is not just about fixing parts anymore. It is about understanding a system that was never designed to be taken apart and rebuilt like this. This creates a constant feeling of being restricted. Even simple actions require special tools, software access, or approval from the manufacturer. This is where the project becomes more than just mechanical work. It becomes a challenge of access, knowledge, and limits. At this stage, every small detail starts to matter more than ever. Something as simple as a sensor reading can stop the entire car from working. The team begins to double-check everything again. Wiring, connections, coolant flow, battery readings. Nothing is trusted without testing. This process is slow and often frustrating because everything looks correct on the surface. There are no obvious mistakes, no broken parts, no clear signs of failure. Yet the car still refuses to start. This kind of situation is one of the hardest to deal with because there is no clear direction. When something is visibly broken, it can be fixed. But when everything seems fine and still does not work, it creates confusion. It forces the team to question their own work. Did they miss something small? Is there a hidden issue deep inside the system? Or is the problem something only Ferrari can unlock through coding? These questions continue to build pressure, and each one adds to the uncertainty surrounding the project. At the same time, the financial side of the build starts becoming more serious. Spending $18,000 on a battery was already a huge step, but now there is talk of even more costs. Diagnostic tools alone can reach up to $30,000, and that does not guarantee a solution. This raises an important question. How far should they go? Every build has a limit, and this project is getting closer to that edge. But stopping is not really an option. Too much time, effort, and money has already been invested. Walking away would mean accepting defeat, and that is something they are not ready to do. This creates a situation where they are almost forced to continue, even without clear answers. It is a risky position, but it also shows their determination. They are not just trying to fix a car anymore. They are trying to prove that the project can be completed, no matter how difficult it becomes. Meanwhile, the technical complexity of the hybrid system continues to create new challenges. Unlike traditional engines, hybrid systems depend on perfect communication between different components. The battery, sensors, cooling system, and software all need to work together. If even one part is out of sync, the entire system can fail. This is exactly what they are facing. The battery temperature sensors, for example, might seem like a small part, but they play a critical role. If the system believes the battery is overheating, it will shut everything down to prevent damage. This safety feature is important, but it also makes troubleshooting much harder. The system is designed to protect itself, not to be easily repaired. This means the team is constantly working against built-in restrictions. Every step forward requires careful planning, testing, and sometimes guesswork. It is a slow process, but it is the only way to move forward. Despite all the setbacks, there are still moments that keep the team motivated. Even small signs of progress, like the ignition turning on, feel like major achievements. These moments remind them that the car is not completely dead. There is still life in it, even if it is not fully working yet. These small victories are important because they provide hope. Without them, the project would feel impossible. They also show that progress is being made, even if it is not obvious. Each step, no matter how small, brings them closer to the final goal. And that goal remains the same: to hear the engine start and see the car fully working again in the end. What makes this project truly special is not just the car itself, but the journey behind it. It is a story of persistence, patience, and facing challenges that seem impossible. The Ferrari is more than just a machine now. It represents everything they have been through during this build. Every problem, every late night, every failed attempt. It is all part of the story. And while the car still does not start, the journey is far from over. The next step could be the breakthrough they have been waiting for, or it could bring even more challenges. That is the reality of this build. Nothing is certain, but one thing is clear. They are not giving up as the project moves forward. The situation inside the garage starts to feel more intense than ever. Time is passing, effort is increasing, but the final result still feels far away. Every attempt to fix the car brings new information, but not always a solution. This creates a cycle where progress and frustration exist at the same time. The team is learning more about the car with every step, yet they are still unable to solve the main problem. This is what makes the journey so difficult. It is not a lack of effort or skill. It is the complexity of the system they are dealing with. A modern hybrid Ferrari is not just a machine made of metal parts. It is a combination of mechanics, electronics, and software, all working together in a very precise way. If even one part does not communicate properly, the entire system can fail. This is exactly what they are facing now. The car shows signs of life, but it refuses to fully wake up. It is like everything is ready, but something invisible is holding it back at this point. The team starts to slow down and rethink their approach. Instead of rushing from one fix to another, they begin to focus more on understanding the system step by step. This change in mindset is important because it shifts the project from guessing to analyzing. They start reviewing previous steps, checking every connection again, and making sure nothing was overlooked. Sometimes, the smallest mistake can cause the biggest problems. A loose wire, a wrong reading, or even a simple misalignment can stop everything from working. This careful approach takes more time, but also increases the chances of finding the real issue. It is no longer about quick fixes. It is about getting it right. This shift shows how serious the situation has become. They are no longer just builders. They are becoming problem solvers, working through one of the most complex challenges they have ever faced. The role of teamwork also becomes more important during this stage. Every person in the garage brings different skills and ideas. Bob continues to handle the custom fabrication work, making sure everything fits perfectly. Dips adds his own input, sometimes bringing light moments to reduce the stress, but also contributing to the problem-solving process. And at the center of it all is Mat Armstrong, who keeps pushing the project forward despite all the setbacks. His determination sets the tone for the entire team. Even when things go wrong, he does not step back. Instead, he looks for the next step, the next idea, the next possibility. This kind of mindset is what keeps the project alive. Without it, the build could easily come to a stop. It is not just about skill anymore. It is about attitude and persistence. At the same time, the risks continue to grow. Every new attempt carries the possibility of making things worse. Working with a hybrid system is not just complicated. It can also be dangerous. Warnings like battery thermal runaway are serious and cannot be ignored. The team has to balance progress with safety, making sure they do not create a bigger problem while trying to fix the current one. This adds another layer of pressure. They are not just trying to start the car. They are trying to do it safely and correctly. This careful balance slows things down, but it is necessary. One wrong step could damage expensive components or create safety risks. This reality makes every decision more important. As the days go by, the emotional side of the project becomes even stronger. There are moments of silence in the garage where everyone is thinking, try to understand what to do next. These moments are just as important as the physical work. They show how much thought and effort is going into the project. It is not just about turning tools and connecting parts. It is about solving a puzzle that does not have clear instructions. This is what makes the journey so unique. It is unpredictable. One day can bring hope, and the next can bring disappointment. But through all of this, the goal remains unchanged. Even though the car still does not start, there's a growing sense that they are getting closer. The ignition working, the systems responding, and the small improvements all point in one direction. Progress may be slow, but it is happening. This idea becomes the main source of motivation. They know that every step forward, no matter how small, is part of the bigger picture. And while the final result is still unknown, the journey itself continues to build momentum. The Ferrari is still silent, but it is no longer completely lifeless. It is waiting, just like the team, for that one moment when everything finally comes together as the project continues. The focus slowly shifts toward finding a deeper answer rather than just trying quick fixes. Up until now, many decisions were based on logical guesses. If something looked like the problem, they tried to fix or replace it. But after spending a large amount of money, especially on the new battery, and still not getting the result they wanted, the team begins to realize that this situation requires a different approach. It is no longer about replacing parts. It is about understanding how the entire system behaves. A modern hybrid Ferrari is designed in a way that every component talks to another. If one message is missing or incorrect, the system will not allow the car to function. This means the issue might not be a broken part at all. It could be a communication problem, something that cannot be seen with the eyes. This idea changes how they think about the problem. Instead of asking what is broken, they start asking what is not communicating correctly. This small change in thinking opens new possibilities, but also makes the process more complicated. To move forward, they begin to rely more on diagnostic tools and data. Instead of guessing, they want to see what the car is actually saying. Modern cars store a large amount of information inside their systems. Error codes, sensor readings, temperature data, voltage levels. All of this can help identify the problem. But reading this data correctly is not easy. It requires knowledge, experience, and sometimes access to special tools that are not available to everyone. This brings them back to the same challenge they have been facing from the beginning. Without full access to Ferrari's official systems, they are always working with limited information. It is like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. They can see part of the picture, but not all of it. This limitation slows down progress and creates uncertainty. Even when they find something that looks wrong, they cannot always be sure is the real cause of the problem. At this stage, patience becomes one of the most important tools they have. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes can make things worse. So they take their time, checking one system at a time. The battery system is still the main focus, especially the temperature sensors that continue to show errors. These sensors are responsible for telling the car whether the battery is safe to use. If the system believes there is a risk,